Jesse, we are back once again. Clear the cache, everybody. I'm your host, Nate Liss. You can find me on Twitter at an outraged Jew. And of course, we've got Jesse Bach. You can find him on Twitter at planet_fatness. Jesse, I don't know if you're aware of this. By the time people are hearing this, we're going to be about a full week into the release of the brand new 2021 Breakout Finder app update. Just cleansing the souls of all the happy previous users, welcoming the new users as they step into the light. I need to put a sound effect right there, Choir of Angels. We added the 2021 rookie class, of course, as expected. In addition to that, we added a running back database. We heard the screams, the clamoring of the early adopters of the Breakout Finder in 2020. They said, look, the wide receiver information is amazing. It's great. It's accurate. But this app would be a lot better if it had running backs. And we heard it. Matt Kelly and I, we chatted, we discussed, and with the power of a lot of very good people, Cody Carpentier, Josh Larkey, Frank, doing his thing, this thing was put together and it came to life. I don't know if you've gotten the update yet, and if you haven't, that's okay. But have you seen on the internet people talking about it?
I have seen on Twitter people talking about it. I've seen rave reviews. Maybe some people showing a little bit too much of a couple screenshots of the app. But I can't wait to download it. I'm sure people have been frothing at the mouth for the running back database, as I have in the past. So I can't wait to look at it. I can't wait to use it to my advantage, especially with card buying and obviously in Dynasty Fantasy Football.
And to your point, Jesse, that's probably the biggest no-no. Okay, I got to say this. We've got a decent audience. A majority of them probably have decided to purchase the app or will purchase the app. It's an amazing tool for your Dynasty leagues, for fantasy football leagues. The biggest no-no out there is when you screenshot stuff from the app and then you share it openly on social media. Look, we didn't have great people grinding data for months and months and months on end. Cody was just chugging Monster energy drinks. I don't know if he slept since he started on this project 3 months ago, 4 months ago. But all the time that was put into this just to have somebody go out there and fucking leak a screenshot of the top 10 running backs. Look, man, it's like a secret club. Sure, we want as many people out there to use the app as possible. But with that being said, don't just freely share it with the universe so that Joshua17463L on Twitter can look at it and successfully navigate his way through the Dynasty League that he's in. No, this is for you, the person who bought it. So please, if you want to DM me, if you want to DM Matt or any of these guys, feel free to do it. Give them a shout out. Just please, for the love of God, don't tag a photo with a fucking screenshot of the app unless it's just the main screen. If you want to do something enticing, I'll gladly retweet it. But if you show me the Breakout Finder data for some new running back like Travis Etienne and his receiving score, which, by the way, that was added this year. Running backs got a receiving score, which is a brand new metric, very cool design. Should check that out. If you send me that shit, I am not going to respond. That will not happen, Jesse. Will not happen.
This is like modern day Fight Club. Like, don't screenshot pictures in Fight Club.
I mean, isn't
just don't screenshot pictures.
Like, that just seems, dude. And I know it's enthusiasm, and I know it's that guy that's coming up behind you. They're like, man, you did it, like the shoulder rub, and it's great. But admittedly, it is a flagrant move to go out and post that picture. So please don't do that. But we appreciate everybody who's putting their hard-earned dollars back into the system because we hope to do bigger and better things in the future with this app at the .com, breakoutfinder.com. So, Jesse, we dove into the world of NFTs, dove into the world of NBA Top Shot more specifically. Everybody knows that listens to Clear the Cash that this is primarily a physical card show, right? It's weird that we have to say physical cards now, because just a few months ago, that wasn't even a phrase, right? We were just talking cards. But now we have to preface it with physical cards versus the NFTs and non-fungible tokens or digital cards. Now, we laid out our case and we got a lot of response. I know I did personally. I got a lot of DMs. I got response from some very intelligent people that said that we need to reach out to some sort of expert in the field. And I'm doing my best. I've reached out to some people. I do have a person that I think is going to be a good fit, but like I was talking to you about off air, I want somebody that's a blend between an expert in the world of NFTs and sort of an economist that can give us an idea of kind of what we're looking for, what to expect. Because as we talked about, is anybody truly an expert at this point?
Honestly, it's tough. I've heard people on other podcasts who were, claiming to be Top Shot experts, and they openly admit, as soon as they are asked about their background in NFTs and Top Shot in general, they'll say, "Oh, I just went into it like, you know, I completely dove in 100% in January," or like it's March 4th today, so you've been in this for like 2 whole months. So I understand you grind it, like when you're not at your day job, you go home, you're literally on the website. I understand, like you're gonna learn a lot in 2 months, but it's hard to really say who's an expert at this point, just because it's different than something like cards that have such a long history, and a lot of us have obviously experience with it in our childhoods. But this is just so new. This is like Top Shot is truly in its infancy. NFTs in general are still in their infancy, so it's tough to really label anybody as a true expert. But I'm sure there are people that have much more experience than either you or I do combined. So this thing is still in its infancy, but only time will tell how it's going to do, and it can't hurt for us to bring on somebody who has quite a bit of experience in something like this.
I would love to. I would love to get more into sort of the depth of it so they can tell us sort of, hey, what NFTs have sold in the past? We know about the Crypto Kitties, and that's what Dapper Labs kind of did before this. I've heard about some of these, and again, you and I talked off air. There are some NFTs right now that are selling for multiple millions of dollars. It's essentially digital artwork, right? It's a 10-second clip. It's kind of like a GIF in a way. And so there's a lot of this going around. And who knows if the future isn't digital artwork where it's literally in motion on your wall. It's a lithium ion battery powered, Wi-Fi connected. You're the only person that has this NFT through some secure app, and you can throw it up to the wall and boom, there it is. It's just like a piece of artwork. And who's to say what one piece of artwork costs versus another? I was actually showing somebody the NFT that I showed you that sold for $6.6 million. It was about the last former president of the United States. You can look it up if you'd like. But it was funny because he stood behind me at a computer and he was looking at it and he was critiquing the graininess of it. And he was saying, oh, it doesn't look that good. And he was kind of discrediting what it was. And I said, it's funny because isn't this the same conversation we would have if we were staring at a piece of art? That you would nitpick the nuance of it. And it's like, that's why it is art. I get how that works in that sense. So I like that it's a vast new world. We don't know everything there is to know about it, but the best thing you can do is probably get your hands in on it if you've got the disposable income. Because truth be told, if it takes off, you probably want a seat on the rocket ship, right? So might as well just get involved if you can. But to the point of the people that reach into my DMs and the people that reach out to me on Twitter publicly, I will certainly, just like we did with the running backs in the Breakout Finder, we will get the right person for this show to talk about NFTs and break it down to a level that isn't just NBA Top Shot. It's really sort of a deep dive on what does the entire landscape look like and what could it look like from somebody that truly understands it on that macro level. So we'll make that happen, Jesse. We'll put our minds together. And for anybody who's listening, to the multitude of listeners that we have, if you know somebody that you think fits this mold, hit us up, hit Jesse up, hit me up, get us in touch with them. We'd like to get them on the show and kind of turn this a different direction and let people hear it from, again, not necessarily a Top Shot expert, but somebody that understands it pretty intimately. Jesse, as somebody that doesn't like to pay sticker price for anything, and that's not a our people joke, I just don't like to pay sticker price. PSA Grading has recently increased the prices. I wasn't even aware of this until you made me aware of it, and you were very angry when you heard about it. Jesse, what does it mean now that PSA has raised their prices for the hobby in general, and will anybody or any other companies be impacted by this new cost?
For sure. So recently, a couple of weeks ago, the Nat Turner and his entrepreneurial group finally acquired PSA, and they converted the company from public to private. And I believe they paid out their investors, whoever held stock of theirs. So that's why it took a little bit of time for their decision to actually implement this price hike in terms of their submission options. So their cheapest option before this point, I believe PSA did have a price increase maybe 6 months ago or so, but it was pretty negligible. It wasn't more than like 10 or 20% per submission option. But this one's pretty substantial. They've basically just about doubled or 1.5x every submission pricing option available, and they suspended the economy submission option altogether. So that cost about, for ultra modern cards, which were 2017 to present, they cost around like $17 to $20 a card, but you needed to submit at least 20 of them per submission to get that rate. And I think those cost $50 now. And the next high tier was the regular submission tier. That went from $50 to $100 per card. And the Express went from $75. So the Express, you could get the card back within a couple weeks, and now it costs $150. Depending on the value of the card. If the card is super valuable raw, you're going to pay a lot more than $150. And then the other options just, they went up by $100 or $200 each. And, PSA, they really helped themselves here. It doesn't, a lot of people are going to be really upset with them in the short term, but I think it was a very calculated decision on their part. They understood very well what they were doing. I'm sure by the time Nat Turner and his group came into the headquarters, or they were able to actually look into the books and look at the submission, the physical card backlog at their grading sites, they saw that it was necessary to substantially increase the price of each of these options, and in order to basically keep their heads above water and keep the company financially viable and just able to exist altogether. Just because with the amount of cards that people are submitting on a daily basis, there is no way that they could have kept up with demand when they have potentially 10 million plus cards in their grading backlog. So how is this going to impact cards that are basically already slabbed by PSA? So I think PSA 10s are going to, especially for the base cards, their population counts are going to we're going to start seeing in the intermediate term, we're going to see them stabilize. So I don't think we're going to get to 20,000 Luka Prism PSA 10s anytime soon. Unless if they have, another 40,000 PSA 10s right now in the backlog, but that's another story. But I think we're going to see PSA 10 prices probably go up for a lot of cards that are, heavily transacted or very sought after in the investor community and just the card community altogether. The PSA 9s, as a result, because the PSA 10s are going up, the PSA 9s are going to go up as well. And I think we're going to see another mini resurgence in StarStock. StarStock is doing incredibly well right now, with the amount of users that they have, and they're the promo codes that they offer, and the deals that they have for new investors on the site. Their marketing team is incredible. So they've already been doing a great job. But I think people who are turned off by this decision and don't really feel like submitting to other companies, they're gonna start looking at. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to start looking at raw cards as well, and probably the best platform to do it, even better than eBay, is StarStock, because when you submit your raw cards to StarStock, they actually grade them, not like PSA or BGS, but they essentially give their own grade to the card. So they label it as either a StarStock A, B, or C. So an A means that there is a pretty good chance that the card, if you submit the card to PSA, it's going to grade as a 9 or a 10. A B, you can even find. I've heard people find PSA 9s even in StarStock Bs. So that means, to me, that says that they're actually pretty harsh in their own types of grades. But I think people are they're gonna see a huge submission in the short and intermediate term of raw cards. So a lot of people are going to be transacting on there. People are going to be transacting on eBay for raw cards. And I think what PSA did with this decision to increase prices as well is they decided to almost kind of like share the wealth. So they're basically diluting the demand for submitting base cards or whatever cards people want to submit to the other companies as well. So I think the company that we're going to see increase the most in terms of the number of raw submissions is HGA. I don't think we've mentioned them at any point during the show. I can't remember what the company stands for. I think it's called like hybrid grading approach or something. I don't know why they call it hybrid, because it's basically fully automated grading. So a machine looks at the card, grades the card, and a human being, I'm guessing, looks at the grade, confirms the grade, and then they slab it. So I think that company is going to skyrocket in terms of the number of submissions they get on a given week. BGS is going to make a comeback as well. I know BGS has already increased prices pretty substantially in the past, but they may not be at PSA levels right now. So I think BGS is going to start seeing an uptick in submissions as well. There's another Canadian grading company, I can't remember, CGS or CGA. They're going to get more submissions as well. So more people are going to look to submit to those companies, and those companies' slabs are actually going to hold a higher premium as well. So this might be kind of like rising tides, how's the phrase go? Rising tides rises all ships or something. I can't remember. So I think more of these companies are going to be held at a higher premium. PSA 10s and 9s are going to be held at potentially even a higher premium than they were before, just because the number of those cards is actually going to stabilize. And people are going to be more willing to transact with raw cards and not even worry about submitting them all together. So, I think it's going to be interesting to see what will happen in the short to intermediate term. Potentially, once PSA comes back from this crazy backlog, and they actually, they reach a respectable number of cards that are in their backlog, maybe they lower their prices again and people start submitting to PSA. But I think in the short term, they're taking a little bit of the pressure and the focus off of them. They actually have a chance to pump out 5 to 10 million plus cards, and hopefully customers and people who are submitting are going to be happier because they're actually getting their cards back now. So I think it's going to be an interesting at least couple of months to a year to 2 years. It's going to be. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen from here. It's definitely going to change the hobby. People are probably going to start respecting the other grading companies as well, and maybe their prices won't be as minuscule, PSA might not have as much of a premium over their prices.
It's automation at its finest, Jesse. While we sleep, They're just continuously grading cards long through the night. Robots are going to replace us all. It is interesting to think like what happens with PSA. It seems rare that a company increases its prices, finds that its revenue not only just goes up because of it, but its workload doesn't really dip at all. I think that PSA is gonna continue to be sort of the most popular, most sought after, and people are just gonna buck up that cost because they'd rather have that PSA name. I know that HGA, and you were right, it's hybrid grading approach. I know that the one thing about them, have you seen what they're doing with their slabs, with the design?
So HGA customizes their slabs to how the card looks. So let's say you grade a card of like PJ Washington from the Charlotte Hornets. They're gonna the label on the top of the slab is going to be some sort of like whatever, like a teal green, something like that. It's gonna look pretty nice. The slab itself is
So it's gonna definitely be a visual departure. So they really are they're visually going different. They're going with a computer-based sensing program that's gonna look at corners, look at surfaces. And don't get me wrong, from somebody who works in sort of a technology field, like this is absolutely possible. I'm not surprised by this at all. I actually believe that the accuracy of it will probably be really fantastic. And just like when you have an umpire calling a baseball game, one umpire from the next has a different strike zone. These will be calibrated to treat every card the same, I would imagine. So at least now you're having combine, conditions where you're getting the same person on the same track, running the same whatever. So in that sense, this might be very unique, because you can go look at who graded any card on PSA, I believe, right? I think you can actually see the grader's name next to the card if you look it up. But human error, human whatever. So I'd be curious what the process is. I think you're right. I imagine at some point, somebody's just giving it a once over at the end and it's going on to its next process. But nonetheless, very interesting option. And hopefully this will create more competition in the market too. And I know BGS is still the most sought after PSA, and I know SGC, but maybe you're right. If HGA takes over, I mean, you like the look of the slabs. Are you going to ever send anything to grading with them?
Potentially. I mean, I have some wax that I want to rip, and my buddy and I, we just kind of whatever cards he has from whatever era, he'll be like, "Oh, do you have any cards from 2016 or before that you want to submit?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sure I have something." And so if it comes back a PSA 10 or even a 9, like I'm still making money. So, I get enough wax, or I have enough wax in my house that I feel comfortable ripping every once in a while just to, kind of submit, whatever. So we're definitely going to be looking at HGA in the future, I'm sure.
Here's the question though. Let's say you were the lucky individual that was live doing a box break and you ripped, some national treasure cards and you pulled a Luka Doncic logo man, 1/1 raw. I don't think you're going to send that to HGA. I'm assuming that's not the card that you send their direction. But Jesse, you saw that this card recently sold for $4.6 million, and I'm sure you can tell us more about the buyer. I posted the video, and I'll link to it on the podcast, but you can find it on my Twitter also. I found the video of the actual box break when this took place, and you saw this clip, right?
First of all, Nate, that transition was unreal. That was one of the best transitions I've heard. That was great. I saw the video. So the breaker, I don't know who the guy's name is. He saw the card and he had some veteran player who was an auto in front of him, and
Ralph
for
Sampson.
like a good minute or so. Ralph Sampson. He had a Ralph Sampson auto out of whatever. It doesn't matter. And you just hear him say, "Oh my God." And I'm like, why is he saying, "Oh my God," over a Ralph Sampson auto? And you realize he's talking about the card that's on the table in front of him that you can't quite see in the camera angle. And he's like almost on the verge of tears. Like he's just in shock, and he says he like he must have said he's shaking like 10 times. Like this guy was like losing his shit, and it's not even his card. He's just conducting the break, and he's like, "Oh my god, I had a feeling we were gonna pull like something insane out of this box," and it turned out to be a Luka National Treasures Logo Man auto 1/1. These cards are insane. Like if there is a card to own, if you play or collect anybody especially in basketball, this is basically the card that you want. This is the card. And I don't know how many times it's changed hands ever since the box was broken and he sent it to the buyer, but it sold this past week for $4.6 million, making it the second highest raw dollar card transaction in like ever, behind the Mickey Mantle $5.2 million PSA 9 sale. But what's crazy, I looked at the buyer's post. The buyer, if you guys got to check out his Instagram. His handle is at Shine150, SHYNE 150. This guy has like maybe like a top 2 or 3, maybe the best collection on Instagram. Like it's just, you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't check this guy out. So definitely look at his collection. Like Nate and I were looking at it pre-show, and like my jaw was like, Nate saw me nerding out on his collection. It was nuts. But so Shine 150, he's a really big, like high-end collector. I don't think he's going to sell this anytime soon. He bought it with either his business partner or best friend or somebody, and the deal included, it was conducted on Luka's birthday, which was, I think it was like late February or early March or something. And it included cards and cash. So a lot of articles didn't even talk about the value of the cards that were included in the deal. But if you take the card value that were also traded in this transaction, in addition to the cash, it would total to a combined value of $5.88 million, making this theoretically the most expensive card transaction in history. So even surpassing the Mantle. So, I mean, I don't want to go too much in the analysis of whether or not I think this is a good buy. This honestly, for a good bit of time, this is the ceiling of that card, because there are crazy LeBron rookie exquisite RPAs numbered to out of 23, and argue, like, we don't have to get into this conversation right now who's the true GOAT in NBA history, but
the answer is very clear.
I'm not going there quite yet. But even though I do collect him, I'm not saying he's not, but but honestly, the LeBron exquisite RPA out of 23, I think it was either a PSA 10 or BGS 9.5. We talked about this on a previous show. It went to a collectors group in California in August for 1.8 million, something like that. I mean, I think, if no offense to Luka, like, I understand this is a 1/1, but why can't that LeBron exquisite RPA out of 23 not be worth that much right now? He's freaking LeBron James. So I don't know the ceiling of that card. Honestly, it'll probably be transacted for higher than it is right now, but that might be like, I don't know, 10 years from now, 15 years from now, once Luka's won 5 MVPs and 5 championships or something. But we're going to start seeing more and more transactions like this. We don't talk about these types of deals enough, but over the next, I don't know, 5 years, we're going to start like $1 million for a card. Like, we're not even going to like bat an eye on that. Like, that's how mainstream this has gotten too. Like, ESPN is covering this as well, and CNBC is covering this, and Fox Business is covering this. So, people aren't laughing at other people paying millions of dollars for sports cards anymore.
Yeah, it's a shocker every time it happens, but I'm not shocked when it's a card of this quality. I mean, this is This is without a doubt one of the nicest possible cards you could pull, which is funny because we were skimming this guy's page when Jesse emphatically proclaimed that perhaps the nicest card you could possibly own is on this guy's page, and it wasn't even this card. It was a LeBron, Kobe, Jordan triple logo man.
Triple logo man, one of one, from 2004. I think it was '04
I
exquisite.
don't.
So it wasn't even LeBron's rookie year, but that card, that's a $10 million plus
So
card.
this guy's
I don't
got
care
an
what you say.
amazing collection. Again, Jesse said it, but it's Shine SHYNE 150 on Instagram. If you want your mind bent, if you want to nerd out on cards, that's definitely the account to go look at. So we talked about National Treasures. And we had a buddy reach out, Andy, and he kind of reached into the DMs, and he mentioned talking about the idea of return on investment. So when you think about purchasing and a return on investment, what are some of the key things? And I know we've mentioned this before, but it's always good to touch back on it. For those people that are trying to make more than $3 for every sale, like what kind of cards give you the greatest leaps?
Well, just because you're not able to afford cards like this, it doesn't mean that you're not gonna not make money in the hobby. Like you can, like we've already mentioned this before, right now is a fantastic time to buy football just because there are so many, especially the skill position players, and there are plenty of quarterbacks that are just flat out underpriced right now just because it's the off season. There are players whose Prism Silvers or Prism Silver PSA 10s or other highly regarded cards are a third or half of the price as they were last August just because it's the off season. So you can definitely make your money just buying Prism Optic or Select or Mosaic even. But if you're really looking to make a pretty nice multiplier of whatever money you put in, National Treasures can't hurt. If obviously you have to like, especially if you get a skill position player, you can find National Treasures RPAs for cheap enough if they're raw. But finding those cards, especially if you find one, submit it and it gets a 10, or what if you submit to whatever company now and it gets a gem mint grade, that card's going to be worth a good amount of money, especially like if it's a pretty highly sought after player. So you're going to see like cards like that. You kind of have the opportunity to, instead of like 2x your money, which is like that's the main goal that a lot of people, a lot of flippers, a lot of investors, like short to intermediate term investors are trying to get at. Like if you get a National Treasures RPA and a gems, that you're looking at like 5xing your money, or if you hold on to it for a good amount of time, you can whatever 10x it, or it can go up some other multiple. But even just going outside of RPAs, we've already talked about this on previous shows. I can't remember if it was a Patreon question or if we answered this on a YouTube live. Um, Someone asked us what type of cards we either like to collect or really hold on to for a while, and like I'm in love with gold prisms. Like especially a majority of them are numbered out of 10, or maybe if even like a gold tops chrome refractor that's numbered out of 50. I'm in love with gold. I'm in love with black or something that's numbered one of one, as long as it's from like a pretty reputable set or brand. Like you guys are going to have to do your research in this and maybe look at some forums to see what cards or what parallels or what inserts are really sought after, um, in order to kind of understand and value these types of parallels and inserts. But like Nate, I messaged you a couple days ago, courtesy of Card Ladder. I was able to find this crazy all-time high sale for this. It's not even a rookie. It's a 2013 Panini Prism Gold Steph Curry BGS 9.5. Its last before 2021, its last recorded sale went in. It was sold in 2015 for $165. It sold on January 4th, 2021 for $37,000. It's over 22,000% increase over like 6 years. So That's what I'm talking about. I'm like cards like that. You're gonna see more I'll say more generous returns. I'm not sure if you're going to see a 20,000% increase, unless if you really hold on to it for quite a while. But but like I've started doing this myself with certain players that I want to collect. Like I've been buying Julio Jones gold prisms, or Julio Jones one of ones. I've bought Julio Jones one of ones this offseason for hundreds of dollars, not even thousands of dollars. So it's just, it's wild. The types of cards that you can find at a discount. We've mentioned this before, but when we had our interview with Rob, the reason that I even messaged him to bring him on is because he had Jalen Hurts green Kaboom insert numbered 1 of 1. So it's nice because obviously the Eagles jersey colors are green, so it matches the jersey color. He bought that on eBay for, I want to say, like $1,200, and I think he was able to sell it for like around 7 grand in like a month's time. Like that, even if you're looking to flip, if you feel something is insanely underpriced and you have the capital to acquire it, it's you're gonna see a much nicer ROI than just buying and selling base or silver cards.
I'm glad you brought up insanely underpriced, Jesse, because without you, I would not have left what I consider my comfort zone of purchasing. We've been talking about cards to buy, and in addition to looking at different cards with more rarity, it's important to look at position groups in sports and players and things like that. And so we talk primarily football, and we've been talking about quarterbacks. And one guy that I know you've been buying up, and I've been trying to buy where I can, is Kyler Murray, because we laid out the case for Kyler Murray. Why Kyler Murray has one of the most explosive and dynamic ranges of outcomes and card value of any quarterback in the league right now. J.J. Watt just signed with Arizona, which hopefully is another benefit to his potential there. But I was looking for a card. I said, Jesse, I need to take a step up. I want to get my hands into the Kyler Murray world. I missed out on a Saquon explosive. I don't know if you're that optic, if you remember. Missed out on it because I just, once again, a failure of an eBay auction. So a blunder. And I was like, I'm done. I'm pushing all my chips into Kyler. I don't want any more anything else. I just want Kyler. And I said, Jesse, find me a Kyler card that I just can't live without. So you went and you searched and you located a card on eBay and you go, dude, this card's underpriced. And I looked at it and the price of it was way outside my comfort zone. But the way that I made it a little more comfortable was by buying and selling some cards along the way. And this is some stuff that we've talked about on literally every episode. But when the season started, and I mentioned this sale last week, when the season started, I was talking to you about NBA players. There was a bunch of guys I wanted to buy up. Bought up a couple guys, Donovan Mitchell in particular. He's been playing incredibly well this year. The Jazz are playing well as well. That was a card that I bought preseason for $315, ended up selling it for $525 after holding it for, 4 months or something like that. Made a one-time purchase, never thought about it again. He started playing well, flipped the card. Jesse, once again, a couple months back, found these Kobe Bryant PSA 10 rookie cards. The guy had 2 of them. He wanted, I think, $1,000 for 2. Jesse talked him down, I think, $100. I think we got 2 for $900. Split them $450 each. Held on to those for about 3 months. And Jesse and I flipped them about the same day, maybe to the same guy, for $900 each. So we're talking about now a difference of like $700, $800 profit on 2 cards that we bought that had a ceiling that we knew was going to go up, and they did. And literally, this is in a couple of months. All it took was buying, setting it in a closet, then pulling it back out and listing the card. And by doing so, I'm going to put this up to the camera. I don't know if we're going to get a very good view of it. You won't see it, Jesse, because I'm going to hold it up to the other camera. But got my hands on this Kyler Murray. This is ridiculous. Of 25, Panini Optic, rated rookie, Pandora Prism, auto, on card. Jesse,
Yeah. It's a Black Pandora on card auto. I love that about optics. So you like we've already mentioned this before how I prefer on card autos to sticker. A majority of optic autos are on card. So that card looks sweet as hell. Black Pandora, whoever came up with that at Panini is a genius. I'm a big Black Pandora stan now. Um, I saw the reason that I thought it was underpriced is because I saw a Black Pandora non-auto optic of Kyler that was a PSA 10, and it's still listed up on eBay for I think $4,000, and it's not an or best offer. The seller's firm. It's a buy it now. And I understand it's a BGS 9.5, and BGS 9.5s are definitely come at a discount compared to PSA 10s. Slightly unfairly, they shouldn't be half the price of PSA 10s. But I thought you have an auto that's on card. I think that card should be worth at least $3,000. And the guy already, what he had it listed for like
Yeah,
2,300 or best offer or something,
25 or best offer. And I reached out to him because you and I were talking. And again, for the listeners that are like rolling their eyes right now or appreciate that we're being transparent about this, I just want to be open with what the cost of this particular card was. And this card was listed at $2,500. And I reached out to the guy after talking to Jesse. And I think I ended up offering him $1,500 for the card. And we're like, that seems like a reasonable, it's not lowballing, but it's the low end of what might be acceptable. So I sent it to him for 15, and the guy came back and goes, look, man, he goes, he denied the offer. So I sent him 17, and then he messaged me and he goes, look, I was offered 1,900 for this card, and I'm not going to move it for less than $2,000. And I'm like, man, son of a bitch. And I'm like, $2,000? I really don't want to spend $2,000 on this card. But after talking with you and then going through the process and looking at these other cards, it's like, this is the type of card that could 2x at $2,000, or 2.5x. I have no idea what the ceiling is for this card at this point. Yeah. It's way higher than what I bought it for. And it was like, okay, look, I've made some sales. It's a little outside my comfort zone. It's a card I could probably hold on to for a while if I really wanted to. It has that kind of upside, but I think I want to flip this card. Ultimately, my goal is to continue to work my way sort of up the ladder here to the point where I'm holding on to a $30,000 card or a $40,000 card and work my way up to a card that I really appreciate, that I feel like has a long-term ceiling, where I love Kyler, but I love Kyler because I think his ceiling is fantastic and I think he's priced really low. Obviously, I'm a Seahawks fan, so Kyler can fuck off, but with that being said, in terms of cards, I love Kyler. Like we want to invest in him. So I ended up offering this guy the $2,000 that he asked, and it was a done deal. Problem is, living in the state of Washington, the great state of Washington, I got hit with about $170 in tax. Lesson learned. Now, Jesse sends his cards to his girlfriend's place out of state. I have some.
I hope the IRS is not listening.
I send my cards to me, being the good little boy that I am. But I've got some buddies in Oregon that are like, dude, just send it to my house. Your aunt and uncle send shit to me all the time. I'm like, okay, that's what I'm going to do, because I would have saved $200 in tax, right? So this ends up being a $2,200 purchase. But here's the real swift kick in the nuts. So in the future, when I sell this card, let's say I sell it for $4,000, okay? So that's essentially $1,800 over what I bought it for. eBay is going to take 10%. So eBay is going to take $400 off the top of this card, because I believe eBay takes 10% at a cap of $750. So I don't think they'll ever take more than $750, I believe is the case. But nonetheless, 10%, which brings us kind of to the subject of other places to sell cards. I know My Slabs is a great one. Jesse probably knows way more off the top of his head. What's the other one that you've been using?
There's StockX. Yeah. Well, StockX, only problem with StockX is I don't know if you can submit cards to them, like submit card ideas. I mean, maybe you can, but usually you can only sell what Like if you type in whatever 2019 select field level silver Kyler Murray, and that card's on there, you can list whatever grade you want of that card that you have. Or if you want to buy it, you can do the same. But I don't think they're going to have an option like that. Honestly, I mean, people are using it probably more often now than ever. Instagram, like if you just have a good enough following of people in the card community on Instagram, and honestly, like especially you of your stature and I guess notoriety in the community in both fantasy and in card collecting now, people are going to take you seriously. So selling either on Instagram or Facebook is definitely an avenue to go as well, just because with the PayPal fees and just shipping and maybe insuring the card, you're not going to lose more than 4 to 5%.
Yeah, and I think that's the ultimate goal because in the game of flipping, we're talking about 10%. If my profit margin's 1,800 and I'm coughing up 400 to eBay, that's a $1,400 profit, which is great. I mean, obviously that's still awesome, but it would be nice to have a few $100s on top of that. So had I shipped it to a different state and had I not gotten hit with 10%, my margin would be a lot higher. So just something to keep in mind for people. But Kyler is certainly a player that we continue to talk about. And you mentioned the field level silvers. Those are probably one of our favorite Kyler Murray cards. And I know just off the top of my head, because we've looked at it so much, I think there's only like 310 PSA 10 graded versions out there. And this was another great one. This was where the team, Nate and Jesse, we tried to go in on these pairs that kept getting sold. There was one night I was on vacation, Jesse and I were talking, and they had this one seller had like 7 lots of pairs of these PSA 10 field level Kyler Murray silvers. And God, we missed out on like every auction. But in hindsight, we should have literally tried to win any of those auctions because that's as low as it ever
Yeah.
was.
Yeah, we should have tried to go after all of them. You're like, oh, are you open to because there was a lot of two, and like Nate's right. This guy must have had at least 9 or 10
Yeah, it was
of
a
them,
lot.
and they were all of their auctions were ending on the same night or within a night of each other, and we would have won it if we went like 750 per
Yeah.
card, and it was a lot of two, and you're like, dude, would you be down to go 750? I'm like, I just I just got one for 700 like a couple days before that. I'm like, I kind of, if anything, I kind of want to go down. Like I want it to be like in the 600s. I want to keep my average like cost down per card. And honestly, right now that's like a thousand
Yeah.
dollar card. Just ever since, especially since the JJ Watt signing. So yeah, just if something's like $50, maybe more expensive than your comfortable price range, just do it. I mean, as long as it's like, it doesn't make that much of a difference in the final sale
I mean,
price.
that's really what it came down to, too, because we're missing it by like dollars in the end. And it's one of the more sought after Kylers. And what's funny is I have seen it routinely. And we bought this card back in January, I think. If I remember correctly, it was somewhere in January. Well, I ended up buying one independently of you. And I ended up doing a best offer, got it for 750. And those cards are routinely selling for like 1,200 by best offer right now. I just was offered, I got a deal from a guy the other day for like 1,100. I have mine listed for like nearly 1,500 right now. I got an $1,100 offer, and I was like, no way. That's a $400 profit. But you and I have talked. I mean, what's like the realistic ceiling of this card?
Honestly, I thought even in the short term after the JJ Watt signing, there was so much hype behind Kyler because people are just focusing on Arizona almost being like the second coming of Tampa Bay was last year. If more and more free agents are going to flock there, which we don't even know, we don't even know if that's going to happen yet. But I thought that that card was going to be at the price of like Russell Wilson Prism based PSA 10s, which those are going between like 13 and 1500. So I thought that was immediately going to be like a $1,500 card. Come August, this card might be a $2,000 card for all we know. So maybe more. Like honestly, it all depends on obviously Kyler's health and how the Cardinals are looking to, how they're looking in the AFC West come August. Maybe a Russell Wilson trade to somewhere outside the division is only going to help Kyler's prices too, just because they're looking like that much more of a powerhouse in that division.
Yeah, don't do that to me. But moral of the story is, cards get really expensive, and some of the cards that I'm talking about right now really aren't even that much in comparison to some of the cards out there, these Lucas that are going for millions and millions of dollars. But Kyler's certainly a guy to continue to invest in where you can because he's got just such a crazy ceiling. So we opened up the show by mentioning that the Breakout Finder app was recently updated. A mind-blowing experience for those of you that still haven't purchased it since the first time I mentioned it on this episode. Go ahead and set down. Go ahead. Well, if you're holding your phone, don't set it down. Do it from your phone. If you're holding a laptop, your laptop aside. Go grab your phone. Take a look at it. But what about some of the guys from last year? When the app was only wide receivers, it identified a bunch of names. Lots of players that ended up being massive hits at the NFL level. Even some players that people didn't necessarily believe in when the Breakout Finder app said, hey, these guys have a great shot. Had breakout ratings in the high 40s, some in the 50s, which is an incredibly high breakout rating. We've talked about the threshold is essentially anything above 20, you have a chance of a hit. And as we start to creep up there higher and higher into the 50s, it feels almost like a certainty that there's a chance. It's basically saying the probability that this player will have a 1,000-yard season or a fantasy relevant season is probable at this level, and anything above 20 means that there's a chance. So what were some names, Jesse, just off the top of your head, some guys that people need to keep an eye on or some of those Breakout Finder names?
What's so wild is I was scrolling through the Breakout Finder a couple nights ago, and I was looking at maybe the top, I don't know, like 30 to 40 names, and I saw at least 5 or 6 of them were from the 2020 wide receiver class alone, which is crazy. Just thinking back on the class and thinking about how talented and how much potential they have and how great they can be compared to so many other well-established, potentially all-time great wide receivers. So obviously we have the highest breakout rating of 2020 was CeeDee Lamb. His breakout score was 57.9. And there's not much to talk about there. Like if I find a good deal on a CeeDee Lamb even raw card, I'm gonna go after it, no problem. After him was Laviska Shenault at 55.8. He had the second highest breakout score, breakout rating in the 2020 class. And I mean, he had a really encouraging season. I know he missed a couple of games because of injury, but his efficiency stats or his efficiency metrics were pretty encouraging for somebody like him. He was basically around top 25 in both catch rate and true catch rate percentage. And he had the number 8 target premium out of every wide receiver in the NFL last year, which is insane for a rookie. And it also goes to show that he definitely has alpha potential in the Jacksonville offense. And it's obviously encouraging, especially if they're going to get Trevor Lawrence in the future. After him, I believe who was it? It was Bryan Edwards. His breakout rating was 51.5, which is still insane. He's like, talk about like the buy low of 2020 wide receivers in anywhere, like dynasty cards, whatever. I saw, just like as a side note, I was watching an Optic Gold raw auto numbered out of 10 of Bryan Edwards, and I think the auction ended yesterday or a couple days ago, and it only went for like $100 or something, like something very reasonable. Like if CeeDee Lamb's like version of that card went up for auction, that's easily like that's like potentially a $500 to $1,000 card. So, and God forbid it was a quarterback. God forbid that was Jalen Hurts. That would have been $1,000 plus card, easy, no problem. So he's definitely a buy low, pretty much everywhere. After him was T. Higgins. T. Higgins had an encouraging enough, a more than encouraging season last year. He had the number 7 target premium out of any wide receiver. Statistically, he was excellent, especially while Burrow played, and even when Burrow tore every ligament in his knee, he was still, statistically, he was still basically a wide receiver too. So he can absolutely function as an alpha in that offense, and he might still be a buy low going into the 2021 season if Joe Burrow starts the year on PUP and misses however many games he needs to miss. That's just more of a buying opportunity for T. Higgins. And then we have another buy low in Jalen Reagor. And Nate, I've listened to one of your Sonic Truth episodes with Matt, and Matt was arguing that Jalen Reagor would actually be one of the few wide receivers in the NFL that would actually benefit from having the team draft or sign an alpha. And I agree. I don't think Jalen Reagor is quite an alpha in the NFL. I'm a huge Jalen Reagor fan, but if we can, as an Eagles fan speaking, if we can utilize him as more like a Percy Harvin role, that would be tremendous. Like, this guy is so damn explosive, and I know people in the card community love watching explosive moments on the field, and that drives prices as well. So he's another fantastic buy low right now. And obviously there's Justin Jefferson. He had I think he had a breakout rating just north of 45 or 46, which is still insanely high. Justin Jefferson, there's not much to say about him. He was just so damn efficient, and he performed so well statistically, not even out of like the rookie wide receivers, just out of any wide receiver. Like, this guy had we revel on maybe another player that we're going to talk about in a little bit. We revel on 1,400-yard seasons like crazy in both the wide receiver and running back category and position groups. But he had exactly 1,400 receiving yards in his rookie year, that is so wild. Like, this guy, honestly, who knows if he has like an AJ Brown trajectory? He might be better than AJ Brown for all we know. I'm not sure, but statistically, he was insane. Like, his fantasy points per route run, he was top 10 in the NFL. Yards per route run, top 5. Production premium, he was top 10. Like, he was so wild, especially for a rookie. If you can find any of these guys' cards, good luck with Justin Jefferson or even CeeDee Lamb. But if you can find these guys' cards for cheap right now, it's definitely worth keeping an eye out for them.
You brought up Bryan Edwards, and I'm writing him up over on Patreon right now, patreon.com/I'm outraged. I'm doing my eBay auction hunter, and I decided I was going to do Bryan Edwards because he is absolutely like the forgotten player of this group. And there is a of 22 contenders rookie ticket on card auto cracked ice, and dude, this thing is amazing. And like, the CeeDee Lamb version of this card goes for $3,000. I'm staring at it as we speak. It's at $60 with multiple days left. Not a whole lot of bids, and I'm just like, I wonder if this card would fall. Like, I wonder if this card would drop. Like, what are the odds that this card only goes for like $150? I doubt it. I speculate that it's a $400 card. But nonetheless, those are all great names. The Breakout Finder will not lead us astray. So believe in these names. Be confident. Buy those guys. If you had to think of one more name of a veteran off the top of your head, haven't preemptively thought about any of this. This is totally organic. This wasn't pre-scheduled at all whatsoever. I'm not filibustering right now at all. Who's just an absolute insane value that you could see a blossoming future somewhere. Who would that be? If you had to just pick one, just one.
Speaking of Breakout Finder, this wide receiver has the 12th highest breakout rating of all time in the database at 60.3, which is just wild. It's Allen Robinson. And the crazy thing about Allen Robinson is how insanely underpriced this guy's cards are. So even before going into his cards, he was top 4 in 2020. He was top 4 in receptions and completed air yards, while also having the 8th highest receiving yardage total. I think he had over 1,200 receiving yards with basically playing with Nick Foles and Mitch Trubisky, whatever. He was arguably the most. He's arguably going to be the most sought after wide receiver in the 2021 free agent class. You and I were talking about him versus Chris Godwin and who can potentially, net a bigger deal in the spring. And I think it's Allen Robinson without a doubt. Like, he's going to get way more attention than somebody like Chris Godwin, or any of the other potential alphas that are going to be available, like Galladay and Juju. And the crazy thing about his potential landing spots is that he might have the first competent quarterback to throw passes to him in his lifetime. I don't know where he went to high school, but how good can a high school quarterback be? And he played with Hackenberg and whoever else at Penn State. So he might actually have the first competent quarterback who he's played with in his lifetime. And mind you, in his second pro season, he had 1,400 receiving yards catching passes from Blake Bortles. So, speaking of, I don't know, I guess with cards of him being in a Jacksonville jersey in his rookie year, he has actually mentioned this past week on the Chris Collinsworth podcast that he would be very open to a Jacksonville Jaguars reunion. And it's all because he is a huge Trevor Lawrence fan, and he would absolutely not mind catching passes from him. Yeah. So, I mean, it's wild how, like, when I'm saying this guy's cards are underpriced right now, like, I don't know if you'll be able to see this too well on YouTube if you guys are watching this, but I bought these two 2014 Topps Chrome base autos, Allen Robinson BGS 9.5 rookie cards combined for less than the price of a Chris Godwin 2017 Prism Silver PSA 10.
Yeah, it's outrageous that that's even possible, because if Robinson hits his trajectory again, if the first time in his career he's playing with a competent quarterback, I mean, those cards are going to jump significantly, and it's just easy money. I mean, this is what we talk about all the time. Like, don't get too attached. I'm not attached really to any card. Even this newest Kyler, like, I'm not attached to it at all. If the price is right, it's gone. Out the door, gone. So for you, you're perfectly positioning yourself to make profit in so many different ways. So for those of you out there that are thinking, hey, who should I buy? Jesse just listed a bunch of rookies from the Breakout Finder app that people should be paying attention to, especially Jalen Reagor, a guy that, as we've mentioned, didn't really have the opportunity so much to break out in the first year, and maybe an alpha next to him might help. We expect big things from him this year. Bryan Edwards, clearly a name to monitor. But man, Allen Robinson has such a ceiling. If he was to go back to Jacksonville, hypothetically, and play with Trevor Lawrence, I believe it's possible that he has a top 5 season at the position, and his card prices are just going to move with it proportionally.